All right, kids, I hope this is streaming where it needs to be. We're here with another edition of Lawyer Radio Live. I'm Christina Previte, your host, the founder and CEO and managing attorney and everything of Wolf Esquires, a law firm in New Jersey that handles divorce and family law. And joining me for part 3 of a 3-part series that we're a little behind on. Totally my fault. I apologize. But we're moving into now part 3 of managing step parenting relationships. So thank you for being here again, Maria.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to continue our
Of course.
conversation.
And just for people that didn't, who have not been acquainted with you because they didn't watch the first 2, you are Maria Natapov of Synergistic Step Parenting, and you help step parents and families transform family chaos into meaningful and harmonious co-parenting. So there are a lot of people who need that, especially in the divorce space.
Mhm.
So, um, our other conversations, part 1 and 2, were focused on this hypothetical family of a mom and a dad who got divorced, and dad now has a new person in his life, a fiance. And I focused on the 2 of them, the dad and the stepmom, kind of navigating those individual relationships because each one has sort of their own perspective. And then today we're going to talk about mom, the biological mom, and what it looks like sort of from her standpoint.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
tell me, what are some of the difficulties that you see? Generally it could be mom or dad, when they can maybe feel like the odd parent out, right? Like
Yeah,
that their spouse has moved on and now their child is part of this other family that
yes.
they're not part of.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the common challenges in these situations, number one is the question, did the dad or whoever moves on, we always know there's usually one person who moves on before the other one, did that person do so too quickly after the separation and or divorce? That can lead to issues of abandonment, not only for the mom, actually for the child as well. Like it feels so sudden. There hasn't been a cohesion of now we're separating and now this process is taking place slowly, and where there's conversations and adjustment periods where the parents are working together to do so, I will say responsibly is the best word that comes to mind. When it happens very suddenly, very quickly, and suddenly this person is like totally moved out onto another relationship, it can really feel like abandonment. That can cause a lot of challenges. It can feel like, wow, did our life not mean anything to this person? It can feel like they're just kind of left on their own to deal with all the things and to process their emotions. And of course, we already know through a separation and divorce, there's a more emotional turbulence. I mean, not only are we dealing with having to build our own life now from scratch, rebuild, if you will, the financial implications of no longer having a partner and being totally responsible for taking care of ourselves and our child, and the emotional burden. I mean, usually it's quite the roller coaster between feelings of guilt, shame, fear, isolation, overwhelm, and then just sometimes like shock and feeling numb as well, right? So we're just oscillating between all these things, including sometimes maybe a little bit of exhilaration and hopefulness for a moment here and there. But it's a difficult position to be in, and it takes time to really process all the things and heal and go through it, right? So that's just kind of the surface level of what's going on for mom. When they actually have a new partner, there's also a lot of fear and concern. Who's this person who's now spending time around my child or children? Which is completely valid and reasonable. So a lot of times, there's this notion of, well, it's not their business. Okay, but at the same time, again, they're concerned for their child and they are interested to have some sort of a sense of who this individual is. And they're curious and wondering, or perhaps fearful, has this person been vetted appropriately? to ensure that they're safe, to ensure that they have, good moral compass, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, let me ask you something though, because I know that that sounds reasonable from the mom's perspective in this hypothetical. But from dad's perspective, and the tables could be turned because, right, sometimes it's mom that has moved on faster. But when you say that, has this person been vetted? I mean, shouldn't we trust that the parent who's in the relationship with the new person has vetted them? I mean, why is there any reason to be worried that, because that's what I would tell my client, right? If I was representing dad, my
Absolutely.
position would be I always encourage people to have an open dialogue as much as they can.
Yeah.
Not everybody is able to do that. So I think it's more problematic in the situations where there's not a lot of great communication happening and things are still more hostile.
Mhm.
Um, my position is always you don't really have to explain yourself to your ex. You don't really owe them that. So how
100%.
do you kind of reconcile those two things?
Yeah, I think the reality, for what's operating underneath that, a lot of it is fear. And a lot of times when we're faced with a situation where we feel we don't have control, that's what we want. We want control because with that control comes a sense, completely, even though it may be a little bit of a false sense, but there's a sense of security, right? And that's what they're looking for. They're looking to have more say so that they can feel secure. And the reality is, to your point,
More say in what? More say in what?
just more say in the circumstances, how things are handled, because we often know that when parents are separating and now they're each making decisions, sometimes they don't necessarily agree on how things are to be done with regard to the kids, with regard to, what are the rules, when bedtime is, for example, how homework is handled or meals are handled, etc. It can just feel overwhelming because they were around these children. They used to see them every day. They used to be involved every day, and they could kind of create some of those environments for them. Whereas now they have absolutely no idea what's going on in that other parent's home. So it's what it really comes down to, ideally, is processing those emotions, sitting with the discomfort of some of that fear, and trusting, to your point, or learning how to embrace trusting that, hey, this parent loves my child as much as I do. How can we work together and how can we create a cohesive, collaborative environment? And certainly that requires effective communication, trust, and working together and creating systems, right, in order to navigate some of this effectively, as well as addressing some of the concerns effectively, but being able to meet, somewhere in the middle, and being able to find peace with that. But
So what do you tell mom? What would you tell mom to do in this case though? Like what would be the action steps?
yeah, so it is sitting with some of the feelings, and it's also checking the facts of the situation, right? Because our emotions are not necessarily the truth. They're just
Mm.
emotions. They come over us like waves and then they pass. So if we're simply reacting from an emotional place, we're not going to be our best selves. Oftentimes, we're not going to make decisions with clarity. Oftentimes, we're not going to be able to come up with win win solutions that are collaborative, which is truly what our kids need in order to ensure their well being and safeguard their childhoods. So, it is about us kind of cleaning up our side of the street. And it's not easy to do. I have a lot of empathy. It is not easy to do, and it takes time. But, again, being on an emotional roller coaster, it's normal, it's natural, and there's some things you can do to help yourself. So, how are you ensuring that you have good self care regimens, right? How are you processing those emotions? Do you maybe need support and help from a therapist or a coach to work through some of these emotions? A lot of
I think
times,
everybody, well,
exactly.
everybody in the whole world needs to be in therapy. But
Yeah,
if
I
you just got a divorce or you're getting one, you need to go to therapy. I don't need to know you to know that you need to be in therapy.
Yeah. Not always exclusively therapy, but I agree. Some sort of an emotional support individual who's a professional who understands your situation. That's another piece that's really key. Not every single emotional support or wellness practitioner is suited for your specific situation. So that's another component to really understand and
True.
recognizing it's going to be messy and being willing, right? Like literally just making the choice of, I need to walk through this. There is no shortcut, you guys. I know a lot of times we're looking for, well, what's a way that I can kind of like skirt around this or kind of do some of the things and shorten the learning curve. And unfortunately, there really isn't a way to do that. The way you shorten the learning curve is by getting honest with yourself about where you're at and then doing the work. And but you can certainly do other things that support you, like ensuring you're getting proper sleep, ensuring that you have good nutrition to, nourish your body, ensuring that you're maybe doing some physical activity to nourish your body as well. Either going for walks, right? Engaging with something that fills your cup, like a hobby or something you really enjoy. Maybe getting together regularly with a group of people who are there for you, who really care about you. And that can be another source of support. So really ensuring that you're putting the structures in place that you need and having grace with yourself. This is a vulnerable time. Some days you might just need to stay in bed and, you might be exhausted or you might just really be going through it. And that's something that also has to happen, right? We can't push these feelings down because nothing good ever comes from it. One way or another, they're going to fight their way up and they will make themselves known and they'll make you pay for having pushed them down to begin with. So, as much as nobody, we don't often want to sit with the heavy burden of the painful and distressing emotions, they are a part of the process. And it is really important to acknowledge them and allow yourselves to feel them and then move through it. One way that I suggest also that might be useful is bookend it. So give yourself some time in the day and you can schedule the time to like really feel all the painful, messy, ugly stuff and think about it and deal with it. And then say, okay, and now at the end of this period, it could be whatever it is for you, 30 minutes, maybe a couple times a day or 45 minutes or whatever that looks like, and then just say, okay, now I'm going to take a break from thinking about that. I'm going to go do something else, ideally something that I enjoy or something that makes me feel good. But yeah,
So, okay, so when they've gone past that, the self-reflection and all like the
yeah,
inner work,
yeah.
at some point they have to that they do have to communicate with the other party.
Yes, yes.
Depending on what that looks like. So,
Yeah.
how do you tell them to do
Mhm.
that? Like, what
Yeah.
do you
And it can be really tough, right? And the other piece I just want to speak to briefly about this whole process is you've had a certain kind of relationship with your ex partner. And now you no longer have that relationship. That relationship has ended. You've now legally gotten divorced. So now, though, you don't get to divorce from being parents to your kids. That's a forever commitment. And therefore, to your point, Christina, you have to find a way to create a new dynamic for yourself so that you can be partners in the business of co-parenting your kids, which means sharing information, making decisions together, being able to respectfully hear each other. And it is difficult, right? It is difficult. So that's why, I'm a certified BH2O coach because that system, that framework actually gives you the container to safely create that new dynamic and build the muscles of how to communicate respectfully, be able to hear each other and acknowledge each other for what you're doing well as create a system for how often to communicate, what kinds of information do you absolutely need to share versus what you don't, and
what do you
how.
think what do you think is reasonable for people to expect to share from with the other
I
spouse?
will say that it is highly dependent on the specific couple, right? The specific parents and what is happening in your own family and your own circumstances. So for one couple, it might be once every 2 weeks. For another couple, it might be once every week. For somebody else, it may be more frequently than that. It really depends on the needs of your child, the needs of your unique situation, and what you determine is appropriate. And certainly there will be one-offs potentially from the norm where something urgent happens and it's important to communicate about that. Maybe the child had some sort of an emergency or God forbid got hurt. But I really want to stay away from prescribing anything because I think it's so important for the parents to be feeling in control of making the decision. And we call it coming from your why, because it's not just, well, this is what I want and that's it. It's really about being able to understand, why is it that you feel this is so important? What's at the root of that need? And once we understand that, which is the core piece, um, then we can start to creatively problem solve of how else can we look at it, what else is available to us. And so it's really about getting the parents on the same page from that place of, what is at the root of that need? And, is it really about the safety of the child? Is it about responding to something that is a frequent occurrence or something else? And then we can actually effectively come up with how to navigate that together.
Okay. So we don't want to just provide a laundry list of
Yeah,
like bedtime, snack time, whatever, the
yeah,
case may be. Um,
exactly.
and again, this is really this is a bigger issue for people that don't have the kind of relationship where they can really talk as well. I mean, do you get people, and maybe that's an assumption on my part that's wrong. Do you get people that do have, for the most part, a good relationship, but just need some help?
I think
Maybe.
in the beginning, a lot of people struggle because of their own fears, because even where, theoretically they could possibly find easier ways of communicating, there's just so many emotions. And there's a reason these people got divorced. So I think in the beginning, there's a lot of fears, there's a lot of emotions, and it may take some time, but oftentimes I would say parents need support. And the key too is, you don't want to stay mired in those feelings and just hope that time will make it better, because I can promise you it won't. So you really want to engage a professional who you feel can understand and support you through some sort of a structure. That's really the key, right? When we have structure, we can trust that structure, we can trust those boundaries and lean on them when things are difficult. And it is a matter of kind of even recreating our relationship with the dynamic, right? Because a lot of times we have a relationship with the relationship,
Yeah.
meaning with emotions around it, right? Like we have a relationship to the trauma or the drama or the conflict. And so recognizing all of that and getting the support that you need for all of that. And also it just helps you to build a better foundation for yourself, a better understanding of your own needs, your child's needs, your co parent's needs, because nobody's out there trying to make your life miserable, even though it often feels that way in the aftermath of
Stop
divorce.
it, Maria. You're not making sense.
Yeah, nobody's doing that on purpose. They're just a human being. They're just trying to meet their own needs and navigate their own challenges. And yeah, maybe they're not doing a great job of it from your perspective, but that's all they're trying to do, and they're just doing their best. So
Well, I think it's hard enough just to be a parent, when you're with the other parent, when you're still in the relationship. Um, but then having to be in a divorced situation or a separated situation, and then try to figure out how to do it that way too, all without screwing up your kid.
yeah,
It's a huge responsibility, a lot of pressure. At least I think, if you're trying to do it right.
yeah.
So,
And so
any resource like the one that you're providing, I think, is incredible for families.
absolutely. And look, the truth is, a lot of us, our parents are doing the best that they can, and the information that we now have access to wasn't available, right? Like I wish my parents had access to BH2O. I think my childhood would have looked very differently. I wish my husband and his ex-partner had access to something like this, but they didn't. And so, the idea is to really lean on the resources that are available to you. You don't have to figure it all out on your own. You don't have to, what do they call, recreate the wheel. you
Mhm.
can you can rely on a supportive structure that takes you through a process and gives you access to actual skills that are applicable to a variety of situations, right? Like once you build them, once you acquire them, they're yours. No one's going to take them away from you. I always say, people, my job is to work myself out of a job. That's my goal.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too that anybody who's watching or listening when we post this on the podcast, that don't feel any shame in asking for help. You know, even if you have to do it on your own, let's say that the other parent just
Yeah,
isn't willing to get to do something like coaching with you, do
yeah,
it on your own. I mean, no one expects you to just instinctively know how to navigate this.
no. And the benefit is you get to heal your wounds and you get to set a better example for your kids and you get to leave them with those tools too. Because kids watch what we're doing and they aren't so much listening to what we're saying if we're not walking our talk. So that's what there is to gain from this is you get to make sure that it ends with you. Whatever it is that you got that was painful or you didn't like or looking back maybe you feel regretful about or sad about, you get to ensure that you don't pass that on to your kids by modeling a better way for them.
Absolutely. All right, so I want to talk about something else that you and I have already spoken of, and we're saving it for the very end.
Yes.
You're involved in a wonderful nonprofit, and I want
Yes.
people to hear about that. And I want to hear
Thank
about it
you so
more.
much. Yes, thank you so much. I am thrilled to share about the Sparrow Collective. And it is a project that is extremely near and dear to my heart. We're in the process of acquiring a property in Worcester County here in Massachusetts for our first one. And we are going to be converting it to 27 apartments for women and children impacted by divorce, specifically in the bracket of between 35,000 annual income to $75,000 annual income, because that is the most vulnerable population, and there's really no supports for women who fall into that particular bucket of income level. And we're looking to intercept them from having to fall into poverty and or homelessness, which is very unfortunately what often happens to women who are finding themselves in this place. And so this community, the supportive living community we're building, will also have on-site resources like family law attorneys who will provide education and guidance. They will work with a financial planner to create their own unique blueprint, taking them from wherever they are to financial security and stability. They will have access to people who will provide skill building and career coaching and pathways to, again, create for them job security and a plan for their career, as well as we'll have business coaches for those who are more entrepreneurial minded. And we will have a whole host of emotional and wellness support services as well, all on site with a daycare on site as well. And we're really excited. Our goal also is for this space to be financially sustainable. So even though we are applying for grants currently and are looking for donations for the initial seed capital to acquire this property, and start this process, we our model is such that we will be generating income ourselves, and we will no longer need to depend on these additional supports going forward once we're operational. So
So when will this be? When is this up and running? Like, when will you actually have residents?
yeah, so it's a multi-phase process. Our goal is to create 5 to 7 apartment units in the first year, which is very ambitious. Hopefully, we will start the renovations come late summer, early fall. That is the plan, and we're really, really excited just to get this all kicked off. The support has been incredible. We've connected with so many amazing people, and we would just love for you to come join us in this mission. If this vision resonates with you, please come check out more information at thesparrowcollective.org. And we, like I mentioned, I think have a capital campaign right now for that initial seed funding that we need to have site control and to start to do all of the testing necessary to do the balloon tax payment and then to start the actual renovation and building process.
I
And
think that's really awesome. I really love that. Because something that I have noticed, you know, as a mature adult is over the years is that it's really difficult with new moms, with single moms, because they don't get the help that they used to. We've all become so individualistic that we don't have extended family living with us anymore, right?
Yeah,
Like the idea of having extended family living with us is like, oh no, please don't. But I think, we do miss out on some things without having extended family and they're
absolutely.
living with us, or if they don't live near you and they can't help, you just don't get help.
Yeah, you don't get the support, you don't get the community, you don't get a shoulder, just a person there. I totally agree with you. And that's the reason we're creating this space is it's kind of for women by women who have been there and, now are able to cocoon the women who are going through it. And the idea is the reason we started in Worcester County is so commonly women take about a decade to recover from something like divorce, and in Worcester County, once women fall into that homelessness and poverty bucket, they stay for decades. And
Mm.
so it was imperative that we impact that area first, and then for our next iterations, we will be elsewhere.
And if anybody wants to either donate or provide some kind of resources, can they go to the sparrowcollective.org?
Yes, absolutely. There will be a donation link there. You can also sign up for our email um, list, and we provide updates on a weekly basis. And you're also welcome to reach out to myself or at the Sparrow Collective. You're also welcome to email us through the website. For myself, it's Maria at synergistic.stepparenting.org. .com. I apologize.
Yeah, I was
And
I was going to give that information, and we'll have it in the comments and the show
yeah,
notes. So if anybody needs to refer to that, they can easily find it. Well, I
thank
think
you
that's
so much.
wonderful. I love that you're giving back to the community in that way. I do know a lot of attorneys in different practice areas, and you said Massachusetts.
Yes.
So I will reach out to them if they happen to hear this or watch it. I'm watching you. You better call me, email me. I'll be trying to enlist their help to come talk to people in your network, or even maybe they can even connect you. Sometimes I can't specifically help somebody, but maybe I can connect you to
Yeah.
somebody that could provide, fill a gap somewhere.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. This is a team effort. Thank you so much for your
yeah,
support.
of
I
course.
appreciate that. And yes, anybody who's interested, please reach out. Please don't hesitate. You're also always welcome to just DM me on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat and share more about what we're up to and have you join us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient with me getting this third one on the calendar.
Thank
And
you.
I know that we barely scratched the surface with all of this. There's so much more that you could really dig into on this topic. But I hope that these 3 episodes at least provided a few little nuggets for people that might be going through this. And again, I can't recommend Maria enough. If you need any help navigating these kinds of relationships, reach out to her. A phone call isn't going to hurt anything to see if you're a good fit to potentially work together.
Mm, Thank you
All
so
right. Well,
much.
happy Friday, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be here every Friday. At least that's the plan anyway. Every Friday at 12:30. Started a little late today, but come back and see us and have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, Christina. Have a great weekend.